Timing. That's right, I'm not going to waste your time like these other channels do with their vague tips and advice. The easiest problem you can fix in your gameplay right after this video is your timing. More specifically, timing your pressure with when your team or the enemy team engages. If you're still a little confused on what I mean, let me do some explaining. So fundamentally, Overwatch is a simple formula that comes down to two main things, being timing and positioning. Yes, there's more factors like communication, mindset, mentality, fight planning, tempo, kill boxes, and all that stuff I'll go into depth on in my next video, but chances are, if you're watching this video, you likely don't have to worry about that just yet. Timing refers to when you choose to pressure the enemy team, and positioning refers to where you are with regards to exerting that pressure. Positioning can be a lot more complicated and a lot more fluid than something like timing. Defensive or aggressive, the distances and sightlines you play, the usage of corners, having an escape route, and trying to fit all that information against different types of compositions on different types of maps can be a really daunting task for a lot of the player base. I guarantee that in at least one team fight per ranked game, you've mistimed your pressure with when your team or the enemy team engages, which can quickly lead to a cascade of events that can lead to a loss. So let's look at each role in the game and see how you could time your pressure better. Starting off with main tank, you need to synchronize your pressure with your backline. With Reinhardt for example, make sure your backline has line of sight onto you when you push in, especially around the corner, and especially if they're being dove. For example, on Icon Ward first point attack, you may be tempted to push around the corner because you have a cooldown advantage, or maybe your number's up so you want to go more aggressive. But too many Reinhardts won't look at their backline before pushing in. As a result, they'll end up pushing aggressively whilst the rest of the team can't help the Reinhardt. This will often be because there's an enemy flanker, like a tracer, fighting your backline, so they obviously can't help you when you push in aggressively. So what do you do here as Reinhardt? Well, there's two options. The first is awareness. Simply turn your camera around, look at your backline, and if there's a flanker on them, you can either swing on that flanker or shield bot if there's range spam like Ana nades which you need to block. The second option is communication. This option becomes more available the more coordinated your team is and if you aren't solo queuing. Simply say to your team you're looking to push in, and if your backline aren't ready, they should say so, in which case you just wait until the flanker is cleared, then you can push. The exact same concept also applies to Winston, even in top 500 games.
Did you think that it's okay to dive when your backline is being pressured? I don't think you did. I don't think anybody's that stupid. Why does this happen then? What needs to change?
Either my awareness or our communication of when our backline is like looking behind us.
Yep, usually the latter. Do we have a consistent communication cycle or call where that you let your team know that you're about to go pressure? Like I'm diving or going in or ready to go?
Yeah, I don't think I give enough notice for that.
It needs to be a command. I'm looking to go. And what happens to you guys if you guys are all turned on tracer and you hear that call? What do you say? Not ready, not ready. Wait. If we had waited literally like 2 seconds, this would have been totally fine.
I would include something on a reset on shield timing, but due to the Overwatch 2 rework, I won't waste the time. Now onto off tanks. The main timing error here is often to do with cooldown usage. Too often, I'll see a diva use her boosters early, meaning she can't take an off angle when she wants to. Here's an example on Volskaya first point defense, where a diva uses her boosters way too early before the team start going in. Then, when diva gets forced off high ground and their DPS start taking angles, because diva likely has no cooldowns and or HP, she can no longer mark those angles. In fact, I'll show a clip here from me and Spilo coaching a Masters diva roughly a year ago.
The key thing that I'm seeing is using resources way too early, like before the fight even begins, and then when the fight actually starts, we're at half HP or even lower, like in that last case right there. We have basically no DM, no even boosters perhaps, because you know maybe we're cutting back with boosters and we can't boost back in to take an off angle.
It's worthless trying to coach any of the micro details about how to position and where to off angle and using cooldowns. I think those are things that we should be thinking about, but like we're at a point now to where we're not even in a position to where we can actually off angle even if we wanted to. You're at 150 HP, you don't have boosters, you don't have micro missiles, and you're missing half your matrix. If you try an off angle in that situation, you're gonna get instantly demected and you're gonna die. It's like eating our vegetables before we even eat our dessert. So yeah, absolutely, 100% agree.
With Sigma, it's often wasting shield and accretion when you get to an off angle. Don't immediately deploy your shield when taking an angle, and save your accretion for when you actually get dove. With Zarya, time your projected bubble just when you start taking an angle. For example, on Icon Wall attack, you can bubble your Reinhardt when he plays aggressively and synchronize his aggression with yours by taking your own angle. And with Roadhog, don't go on some 10-year flank. Most Hog players, including the ones at top 500, either flank too early fishing for a hook and they end up feeding their brains out, or they flank too late and miss the opportunity to get a hook or even worse, they somehow do both.
Your chances of landing a hook here are next to none because there's nothing distracting the enemy team from the threat of hook. That's all they're thinking about right now is a Roadhog hook. Now you're Roadhog, you're going to get out fine, but the very fact that you're looking for a hook here is completely moronic. It's not just that, because now you're in a position to actually shoot and or flank again, right? But you don't have bait, you're not in position yet, are you? You're going to be late. Look at you, you're late. And now we go in the flank, but their backline is already rotated. And now you're worthless.
Now, moving on to DPS, things become a lot simpler for the majority of the cast. Splitting up DPS is a lot more complicated than splitting up tanks and support, but thankfully, there's not really any special advice for most of the DPS cast. Just look at your team before you pressure and ask yourself whether they're diverting any attention away from you. For example, on Rialto first point defense, flanking and taking an angle would be a complete feed if your tanks are still crossing over the bridge. But once they're fighting, you can then time your angled pressure, whether that be you playing Ashe or Hanzo, utilising the high ground, playing Soldier to utilise your sprint to get a deeper angle, playing Cassidy, utilising the extra HP and flashbang to take a greedier angle more safely, playing Echo or Farah and gliding across the roof, or playing any flanker and diving their backline from any angle. And that leads me nicely onto the added advice for flank heroes in particular, especially Tracer and Sombra. Whilst the advice on timing so far has been pretty conventional, basically timing your pressure with your team, heroes with greater pop-off potential, like a Farah with Barrage, or a high damage flanker like a Tracer, can benefit greatly from timing their pressure just a bit later, and here's why.
Put pressure at the same time as your team. Is that exactly accurate? Right, just after. And I think that's actually a really important concept to understand. For example, you're playing Winston, D.Va, Sombra, Tracer, Dive. Your Winston is tankier, he has better HP, and he has less pop-off potential. You would rather have your Winston D.Va take the initial bit of threat and you come in just a little bit afterward. Timing needs to be with your tanks, but I would say half a second after your tanks. If I'm playing Tracer and Dive and I'm trying to one-clip that Zen, I'm gonna go in right as my Winston's landing, half a second, and then now I'm going, because now that Zenyatta is fully focused on annihilating and beating up that Winston. He's not thinking about anything else. Bro, I think what's a good analogy here? Okay, you're a pickpocket, right? Can you imagine how effective a pickpocket would be at like a fireworks show? There's a big firework, boom, right?
Lord Jesus, oh shit!
And that's when you reach in. They're not thinking at all what's going on behind them, right? That's a terrible analogy, but you get the idea.
Lastly, moving on to supports. My specialized tip to main supports, being Lucio, Brig and Mercy, is to focus on good timing of your fundamentals. This does seem a bit vague, but I've decided to apply this specifically to main supports, as most of the player base don't even know the fundamentals of each main support. Let's start off with the easiest, being Lucio, who most simply put, is played for speed boost. A lot of Lucios, even the ones in the metal ranks, will often get the part of speeding the team at the right time, whether that be speeding through a tough choke or speeding back to retreat. However, a lot of Lucios don't know when to stop speeding the team and to actually help with off-angle pressure. For instance, on King's Road third point attack, you can speed your Rhino to close the distance and then start wall riding onto high ground to deal with any threats. You're actually a pretty good duelist as Lucio, with your wacky movement and decent gun if you can land your shots. Next is Mercy. The fundamental behind Mercy is damage boost. That's why you pick the hero. And most players struggle to time their damage boost with when their team are aggressively pushing, which can lead to big desyncs or even teammates dying at worst. For instance, on a minor scale, if there's a Cassidy or Soldier running backwards and a Zenyatta pushing forward to try and land a big right click, you should be damage boosting the Zenyatta, obviously. But most Mercy players are too lazy, including you watching this video, to switch off your pocket to then boost the Zenyatta, and there's countless examples of this throughout a single match. Lastly, with Brig, most players don't know this, but a key aspect to Brig is denying and threatening short sidelined off angles. For instance, on Dorado first point attack, if you don't need to stick with your other support to peel them, you can quite easily control and threaten this angle. Sure, you might not kill anyone, but that's not the goal here. The goal here is to deny the angle and waste resources and time away from the enemy team. Imagine you're an enemy soldier with tac visor and you want to flank to get a juicy angle, but a Brig is in your way. Unfortunately, not many Brig players know that you can actually do this in the first place, and in terms of timing, you should do this early into a team fight or before it even begins. Finally, onto flex supports. Like ways to off tanks, flex supports often play around their game-changing cooldowns, and timing them is the key to winning. That can be making sure your lamp isn't too early or too late, so you either end up wasting it, or your tank ends up dying, or with Ana, that can be timing your nade perfectly, both when your team can actually follow up on it, and when you have the greatest chance of landing it.
And now your window of opportunity to nade is gone, because you can no longer safely peek this to nade it. And the value of the nade here is going to be reduced because your team is not going to be in a position to punish it because you do not have your bubbles.
With Zen, this can be ensuring you get your orbs on a flanker just in time to help out your DPS winning that duel. Even with Moira in a more broadly based composition, timing your heal orb with Reinhardt's aggression can maximize the ult charge for you, whilst ensuring your Reinhardt is as safe as possible whilst being aggressive.
Your main tank and you and your off tank who are initiating, these are the targets that you want to heal, right? Yourself and your tanks. And if you heal orb during these initiations, these are the people that you're going to be supporting too. So it's not wasted on people out here taking chip damage, right?
I hope in this video you learned something new. Even if you're a top 500 veteran in this game, I hope that tip to time your pressure just a bit later can really help you out. If you want more no bullshit, well-structured videos like this, let me know down below. And if you want to ask me personally for advice, either in Overwatch content creation or in Overwatch specifically, feel free to join my Discord community and on my Twitter. And if you're new, you need to check out my educational starter pack featuring